Before we begin, I wanted to transparently share my reason for choosing this topic for my summit. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I desired to honor all survivors and advocates of domestic violence and abuse, especially during this difficult time during the pandemic. As a two-time survivor of domestic violence, I've escaped twice, recovered twice both physically and mentally, broke the vicious cycle of repetitive abusive relationships, and walked out a long healing journey, which included forgiving every person that ever did me harm. I can say that today, I'm healed in the depths of my soul of all past bitterness, hurt, anger, offense, rejection, depression, and even suicidal thoughts, thanks to my relationship with Jesus Christ and the healing power of His Word. I'm at a place where I believe God has called me to give a voice to the voiceless and encourage and exhort women around the globe so they can come up and out from their low place and defeated mentality following traumatic life experiences. I have a mission to spread massive hope and love by sharing stories of women who have walked in your shoes but are now living an abundantly blessed life by serving others, walking in their perfect paths, sharing their gifts and talents, and happier than they've ever been before. These women are not any ordinary type of woman. They are diamonds. The definition of a diamond, according to our academy, is a heroic survivor who has endured the fires and pressures of their own life experiences, overcome the pain and negative effects of abuse or violence, and now stand victorious in their successes. They now use their story of resilience as a weapon, helping tear down fears and doubts surrounding the minds and hearts of other women walking through similar battles they previously fought. And as they share their story, they only shine brighter and more brilliantly than they ever have before. Now, I'd like to introduce one of these beautiful gems to you today. So listen and be transformed by their powerful, life-giving story. Hi, and welcome to the Power of Forgiveness Summit. Today, I have another lovely diamond guest joining me. She's an international award-winning speaker. She's also a best-selling author, corporate trainer, a chaplain, and a healing touch therapist. Please welcome Dr. Portia Lockett to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Lockett.
It's such a pleasure to be here with you, Alana.
Yay, thank you. Thank you. So we're going to just jump right in. I was actually reading your bio, and I mean, you definitely endured so much in your adulthood, your young adulthood. You definitely turned lemons into lemonade. But take us back to the very beginning of your journey and where it really all began. And feel free to share that with us.
Well, you know what? I grew up in the great city of the Motor City of Detroit, Michigan. I grew up
Mm.
in a Christian household, very loving household. My father worked for 35 years plus with Ford Motor Company. As you know, Detroit is the Motor City,
It
along with,
is. Mm-hmm.
and he was a wonderful provider. And I just saw, a lot of love, a lot of sternness, in
Mm.
strong man that he was, and he married a very strong-minded woman
Mm.
who was very in tune to what she needed to do in order to take care of her man and take care of her household. She was a stay-at-home mom, and then when we got well into school, she went back to school and got her master's degree in music, and she taught in the Detroit public school system for a number of years. And both of them were very active in our church, and we were raised, of course, in the church. My mother was the master pianist, and she was the oversaw many of the choirs that were in our church. My father was a deacon and a superintendent and very involved in the Sunday school. As a matter of fact, he was the Sunday school superintendent. And
Wow.
choir, we went to Sunday school, participated in all the extra activities that you would find in the traditional Baptist church.
Mm.
So years later, I grew up, as I said, in the city of Detroit, went to, elementary school, middle school, and high school. I was very active in my high school years. I sang in the choir, played in the marching band. I was a cheerleader in the Spanish club. Everything there was to be involved in, I was involved in, because it was so funny, because my dad was, he was, like I said, a very stern individual. And it's like, at home, you were home. You were not going to hang out and do all sorts of things that the streets were calling you to do. And so I decided that every opportunity I had to be out of the home doing productive and fun things, I was going to take advantage of those things, right?
Right.
To college, and following my calling on my life, which was teaching, went to Eastern Michigan University, and got my bachelor's degree there, and then also went to Wayne State University and pursued my master's in business there, and then moved on later on, into my life of just working, teaching in the school system and working with the radio stations, I think you read about, in my bio, and then moving on to having my own company, getting some additional training so I could become a corporate trainer, again, teaching, following my dreams. And then, of course, I met my husband in elementary school, and we went to elementary school together. We ended up going to school together, went to college together, got married, had 3 wonderful children, and, life happened and we're apart. And I'm still moving forward. And so as I'm still, moving and listening to the calling on my life, I'm still, teaching, I'm still training, I'm still, in the ministry. And then God called me into being a chaplain. I always knew that there was a special calling on my life, but there was not a quote unquote title for it. And so that's how I entered in the world of ministry and of the chaplaincy.
Wow. Wow. I just see just this big, huge, like, God blueprint on your life all at once. And it's just so amazing what he's done in your entire life journey, just in a nutshell. But take us back. So, once you actually met you met him in elementary, but it later on, once you decided that you were going to get married, did you have were there any signs that he was, like an abuser, or that there was any like red flags of domestic violence at all?
No, not at all. I will say that I saw signs, when I was dating him, but it wasn't him. It was more so his father. His 3 years senior than his mother. And his mother was the sweetest woman you ever wanted to meet. And we were just about the same size, had the same spirit. I mean, I just loved her like she was my best friend, like a mother. And I would just often just see how she was spoken to, abused. She was verbally abused, it kind of hurt me to my core, because she was very, very soft-spoken and just, pretty much said what she had to say just to survive and to thrive. And I could see that she was just a very unhappy person. And the joy that she got was from her son, her grandchildren, of course, myself, and she was a faithful member of her church. And so that was her outlet. Her family was her outlet. And so I could see that. And so never in a million years did I think that something like that could happen to me. And I will tell you this, is that I loved my husband. I still love him, because he is the father of my children. Okay. That's going to always be there. In love? No, I'm not in love. Did I love, how I was treated at that certain point in my life? Absolutely not. But here's the deal. We had a wonderful relationship, a wonderful marriage. And one day, an individual decided to drink and drive.
Oh my.
And ran into my husband and ran into the car that he was driving, which also occupied my 3 sons and my godson. So from that very moment, he experienced a closed head injury, damage to his heart, broken ribs, broken pelvic bone, collapsed lungs. So, he was damaged. And it wasn't until months later that we discovered that there was a closed head injury. And here's something. You really never know when someone is quote unquote bipolar. Don't show any type of symptoms. But after having a conversation, with the doctors, and they kind of explained to me that it was kind of like exasperated. It was probably already kind of like a suppressed sort of ordeal that was going on with him.
Mm-hmm.
And when that closed head injury happened, that's when it all started.
Then it really
So
expressed
physical.
at that
I'm
point.
sorry.
Then it really expressed at that point.
Yes, it began to express itself. That ugly head began to rise up.
Mm-hmm.
And there you have it. It just changed who he was. It changed the dynamics, of our household. It wasn't something that he wanted to do or attempt to do. Life just happened. And that's the way it started with us.
And so after that, how did you really cope? And sometimes women, and when these situations happen and all of a sudden the abuser just flips into another person, all of a
Mhm.
sudden they get into this mode where I can fix it. I can do this. I can handle this. Now, did you do that? Were you that type of person where you said you had that mentality like I can handle this, I'm going to help him. We're going to be
Mhm.
fine.
Absolutely. Of course. Because, why would I stop, right there in the track of what was going on and say, this is it, this is it. Because I really didn't know what was going on. I thought it was a process that we had to go through. Maybe it was the medication that he was on that needed to be adjusted.
Mhm.
Didn't like taking the medication that he was on. But of course, when we met, with the doctors, they were saying, in order for him to stay balanced, this is something that he needs to probably take, for the rest of his life. And,
Mm.
with most people, nobody really wants to take medicine. No one wants to wake up and just say, I just want to be on this pill. I want to be on high blood pressure pill. I want to be on a pill for my diabetes. I want to, be on chemotherapy. No one wants to be on any type of medication if they don't have to. Maybe supplements to enhance what you're doing. But most of the time, people don't like taking pills. Personally, I know I hate taking pills, but I take them so that I can continue to be healthy and whole, right? So
Right.
when you're in a situation like that and you're saying to yourself, I promised, I took a vow through
Right.
sickness and in health until death
That
do us part.
Mhm.
I made that commitment. I said it before God, before family,
Mhm.
before friends, like we all do.
Mhm.
So when you take a look at the situation, it's like, okay, I got to stick with this man.
Mhm.
I love him. I know he loves me, but
Mhm.
I understand what's going on. And
Mhm.
year after year after year, and then here's the deal, is because of who we were in the community, how involved we were in our church. You've got this role that you play. You don't want anybody to know what you're experiencing. Like most people who are in abusive relationship, you're embarrassed to be able to see what's going on behind these doors. I
Mhm.
put a mask on, but really behind this mask, there's some hurt going on. There's some abuse going on. There's some unhappiness. There's some uncertainties that are going on. And I'm not really sure how to handle this. So the
Wow.
thing I began to do was reach out, and I
Yes.
opened up and I began to share, with my family, because they were in the journey with me together. I don't think they all knew exactly what was going on. So I had to kind of pick and choose which family members, I was able to share that with, that would not condemn me or be judgmental. Because the first thing, I didn't want people to start jumping on him and portraying him as a bad person. He was not a bad person. He was a
Right.
great husband. He was a
Mhm.
great father. He was a great
Mhm.
person to so many people in the community. I mean, he was very involved.
Mhm.
So, but this happened. So I couldn't put the blame on him, but I did. Because at that time, I'm just thinking, okay, there's something we got to do about this. You got to, we got to make it. You got to do what the doctors are telling you to do. You got to take this medication. You got to stay on the medication. But, that person at that particular time just had blinders on and wasn't hearing anything that I was saying. And I just I was not the one to be able to get to him to make
Mm.
be able to
Right.
see.
So you reached out to your family, to certain
Mhm.
family members.
Mhm.
Were there any other resources? You mentioned how you were attending church.
Mhm.
Was there any point when you actually reached out to church leadership or anyone there? Did it ever become revealed there?
Yes, it did. And unfortunately, I was not able to get the support that I needed.
Hmm.
So I had to go outside of the church because I don't think that, like most churches,
Mhm.
um, are equipped to be able to deal with people who have mental illnesses. And I'm just going to say bipolar is a mental illness.
Mhm.
It is what it is. And so when you don't have someone that is there, or you don't know who that person is, if they're in attendance there for you to be able to talk to. And so I go outside, I had to search, for a therapist, for my family. So I was in therapy, he was in therapy, our children were in therapy, but I knew I needed something a little bit different outside of just that unit of that person that we were seeing.
Mhm.
And so I reached out to someone till I was able to connect for myself, because I needed somebody. Your family, your friends are going to tell you what you want to hear and what they would do, but no one really knows what they would do unless they're in that situation.
Right, right. And not everybody truly understands. First of all, no one really truly understands domestic
Absolutely.
violence, what it looks
Absolutely.
like, abuse,
Hmm. Hmm.
verbal, mental, emotional, and
Hmm.
definitely there's a lot that don't understand
Hmm.
bipolarism. They don't
Absolutely.
understand that diagnosis. So,
Hmm.
it's so incredible. So you're reaching out, you're trying to find, the best resources and the therapist. So along this journey, how long was that along the way? And also, what were you experiencing in your marriage from your husband at that time?
Mm. So, hmm, just as I reflect back, I remember coming home from work, and he was sitting in the office, and I asked him, how was your day? And I just never knew from day to day what the answer was going to be, but that was our typical start
Mhm.
discussion. How was your day?
Mhm.
And I remember him snapping at me and says, how do you think my day was?
Mm.
He was sitting there, the room was dark, it was very, very gloomy. And then we would argue a lot. And I don't even remember what we were arguing about, but it was always something. I could never say the right thing. And then sometimes how he would speak to my sons, the interaction that they had. And I says, this is not good interaction. Um,
Mhm.
and everything was basically centered around him. I remember going to out to dinner, and he started experiencing some pain, some shoulder pain, and I don't know what it was. I think it was something that had happened with the accident, that area of his body that had never healed.
Ooh,
I
uh-huh.
remember him saying, let's go. And we had literally just gotten our meal. And he said, let's go. And he kind of did a little scene at the restaurant. And I said, okay, I've got to pay for everything. And the kids were just like, well, we just sat down to eat. When are we going to eat? And so I just had to like pack everything up and let's go. So whatever I had to do to accommodate so it wouldn't be a scene, I just did it, because I didn't want to be embarrassed. I didn't want my children to be embarrassed. I didn't want people to see him this like, I mean, even though people didn't know who we were, they could probably care less, but it was just me. It's like, okay, wait a minute. What if we run into somebody that we know? This whole mentality of this image that you're trying to portray.
Mm, that's right. Keep
Looking in, it's kind of like, who cares what other people think?
right.
Have to do is I have to do whatever I have to do to take care of myself and keep myself safe and keep my children safe. And as much as possible, keep him safe from himself.
Mhm.
So I started seeing signs like that. Um, just kind of like just disconnected, from friends, people not being able to relate, to what was going on. And he didn't want me to tell anybody what was going on. And so, I'm kind of like stuck in this space of who do I tell, who do I not tell, in his friend circle. So it was very, very challenging.
That's so challenging. So when describe, all of the survivors I've spoken to, they all got themselves to their last straw, so to speak. So where was your breaking point? When was it, okay, this is enough.
Mhm,
I'm gonna have to exit. And
mhm.
despite, okay, I made this covenant with with him, with God. Um, what was that moment like?
Well, there were several that kind of led up to it, because I could see not only was it becoming a verbal abuse and emotional abuse, because this emotional thing, it's just like you're just afraid, If I do
Mhm.
this, it's going to push them to the next level. I know
Mhm.
it happens. So just always in that space of not knowing what's going to happen next. Okay. And
Right.
so I think there was a moment when I was on my way to church one Sunday morning and he wanted to have a conversation. And I said, we can talk, when I get back. No, I want to talk now. And I
Mm.
fists coming past my face
Ooh.
and it went into the wall.
Oh my
And it was an older home. It wasn't one of those newer homes that they built up now that you can just lean into and it kind of like, oh, there's your body print. I mean, it was a older home that was probably built like in the 1930s. So you can know the structure was very strong.
Mm.
Punched a hole in the wall. And I'm like thinking to myself, oh my God, that could have been my face.
Wow.
Okay. Then there was another situation. I didn't even leave then, but I had asked him on several occasions, you've got to leave. You've got to leave. And then one day I was sitting down, going through our bills, and there was a sliding door that was like a mirror. And he wanted me to stand up and have a conversation. And I says, no, I'm going to sit here. I'm a little tired. Next thing I know, there's glass that surrounded me. And I remember my youngest son came upstairs because he heard the shattering, the noise.
Mhm.
He came up and said, Dad, if you can't treat mommy better, you have to leave.
Mhm. Mhm.
But he left. He left.
Wow.
I just told him until you get your help, because he had stopped taking his medication,
Oh.
the help that you need, you cannot come back.
Mhm.
Maybe a few months later, he said, I'm getting the help that I need. And I got a little weak. It allowed him to come back in. But I said, but we're not sleeping together or anything like that. And
Mhm.
sleep in another room of the house, and I'll sleep in the bedroom. And then
Mhm.
to the point where there were some things that took place, where he wanted to be intimate and I didn't want to be intimate. And there were not
Mhm.
much being chased around my own home. And I had to sleep with a hammer under my pillow because I was afraid of my life. And I just said, you got to go. You've got to go. And so I remember, calling my brother up on the phone. He says, Portia, you can't continue to do this. It's like a pattern of different things that are happening. So he's got to go. So I told him, I said, you've got to go. And so when he left, I remember changing the locks on the doors. I changed the alarm system. And again, I'm in this state of being afraid. And I just had to have a conversation with my sons, and just saying, this is what's going on, because I didn't want to tell them the truth, because I wanted them to still love their father. I wanted them to have this image like, your dad is still the greatest. But then again, I had to say to myself, with what I'm teaching my sons and what
Mhm.
I don't want them to think that this is the way a father is supposed to treat, or have conversations or dialogue with his sons, or this is not the way you're supposed to treat your wife, someone that you quote unquote love.
That's right.
And so there was a double message. So I can't say, stay, try to work it out and try to act like everything is okay. And on the other hand, this is not how it's supposed to be. So I had to make a conscious decision to say, this is it. This is
That
it. I can't do this anymore. I
and
can't be afraid. I mean, I was to the point where if I saw him calling me on my cell phone and I would look down and see him calling me and calling me and calling me. I mean, I would just get this feeling of just like my body would just start shaking because, I didn't know what was going to happen. I felt very threatened. I felt very violated.
Mhm.
I felt like I was emotionally abused, spiritually abused, you know, not even getting to the financial piece, but I just felt like I was just a complete mess. And here I am, a spiritual advisor. I'm a chaplain. I'm the one that people come to for help and resources. And my stuff was not together because of this situation.
Wow.
To be honest with myself and start looking at that person in the mirror and just say, I had to speak to Portia as if I was speaking to someone else that was in the same situation.
Mhm. That's interesting. That's so true. I mean, because when you're in the moment, you
Mhm.
always feel like it's okay. I can I can fix this. I can
Yes.
handle this.
Mhm.
I'm, big enough. I'm strong enough. I'm resilient enough.
Yes.
And most all survivors, that's just a common thing. But if they were to think about their sister or someone else going through it, it's like, oh no, I
Absolutely.
don't want them to. I don't want them
Absolutely.
to. But I
Mhm,
can
mhm.
handle it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's exactly what you were doing. But
Mhm,
you know, you did your best. And I like that you mentioned too about your sons, and that you had this epiphany where you thought, what is this teaching my sons?
absolutely.
And most women, they think they have to stay, if especially if they're married
Mhm,
and they're strong Christian women, and they just really
mhm,
believe, okay, I made this covenant, I have
mhm,
to stay regardless, like you said, till death do us
mhm.
part.
Yeah.
But
Mhm,
what statistics say is that the children who witness the domestic violence and the abuse in the house, if they witness it, they're
mhm,
like 50%. I think it might even be a little higher than that, have
mhm,
greater chances of actually becoming abusers
mhm,
themselves, and or just having some other kind of negative effect. So it's
mhm,
actually better for them to be extracted from that environment
mhm. Yeah.
and just not have to witness it. But so you decide to actually, well, he left, and but you said he let him back in, and then you said finally, okay, this is it,
No.
I'm sleeping with a hammer underneath my pillow, this has
Mhm.
got to stop.
Absolutely.
What what did you do next to really finalize this and seal it off?
Well, you know what? We were separated, for about a year, and pretty much didn't have any contact. I reached out to an attorney. I reached out, I remember having a conversation, with my pastor and my first lady at that time, and kind of
Mhm,
share with them, really what was going on. And they
mhm,
understood. And I said to them, I've got to separate from him as much as I can possibly, because we were worshiping at the same church. And I said,
mhm.
not, I said, I've got to leave here because I cannot be in the same place of worship that he's in,
Right.
trying to go and get whole and get healed spiritually. And there's
Yeah.
someone in the back, kind of watching me, and I don't know, what
Mm,
the intent is or what's going on. So, you know, they were very supportive. I mean, we're still, in contact, to this day. We're very good friends.
mm,
And I remember, sitting down again, having a conversation with my therapist, sitting down with my friends and, my family, and coming up with a plan. And,
mm.
this is it. And so I still wasn't sure. I was still in the back of my mind thinking, there's hope. And I remember receiving an envelope in the mail one day, and it was, matter of fact, it was Halloween. And I got papers. He served me. He
Wow.
says, if I can't come back and you're not going to let me in, then we're going to go ahead and get a divorce.
Wow. So
And
he
we
just went ahead
we
and took the step for you.
he took the step for me. And so
Mm,
9 months later, we were divorced. Now, going through the whole divorce process, that was crazy, because neither one of us had gone through this before. And then true colors start showing up again, through that process. And I got to the point where, you know what, I just want peace. So
yes.
whatever it is that you want, you can have it. Take
Mm,
whatever. We're collectors of, beautiful pieces of art and things like that. But when you start thinking about peace of mind, you can't put a price tag on peace of mind. So take whatever it is that you want,
that's right. That's
whatever it is
so
that you want,
true.
because I just want to be safe. I want my children to be
Mm,
safe. And
mm,
I just praise God, because I had so many people that stood up and said, Portia, whatever you need, we've got you. People actually had my back. I thought this was at the very beginning of the whole accident piece. They stood up and had my back. But of
mm.
course, like most people, when you go through your divorce, sometimes people don't feel like they want to be friends with either one of you, because they don't want to choose.
Mm.
So I lost some friends, I lost some relationships, and I'm sure he has too, over the years. But it doesn't matter, because I truly believe that whoever God wants to be in your life will be in your life. And I think we see this even now with COVID. There are a
Right.
lot of people experiencing being
Mhm.
forced in an environment, being forced, being shut down with one another. And you get to really know each other into
Mhm.
like you've never experienced before,
That's true.
locked down and shut down.
Mhm.
And so what I've noticed is there are a lot of people who are saying, you know what, I didn't really know myself and I really didn't know this person.
Oh,
And
yeah.
either I really love this person and we can make it through anything, if we can make it through COVID, or it's not going to work.
That is so true. COVID has definitely been such a
Yeah.
big test for all
Mhm.
marriages, really.
Yeah.
It's been
Mhm.
definitely putting so many people to the extreme test.
Absolutely.
So
Mhm.
so as you went on and you had that support, you had, your network of people around you to love on you,
Mhm.
um and that's so important. I think we really need to like really emphasize that, how important that is.
Absolutely. Mhm.
um and but now, I mean, fast forward, down the line, when you're going through your process of healing. Explain to us what that healing journey was like for you.
First of all, just being honest with myself, being honest and just saying, you're not perfect. No one's
Mhm.
perfect. And it's okay for you to admit that this is happening, Portia.
Mhm.
It's okay for you to get the help that you need. It's okay for you to reach out for the resources that are there for you.
Mhm.
Grab your blessing because all of those resources, all of those contexts, the therapy, it was all a blessing to make me who I am right now. Because if I hadn't gone through all that, I would not be in a position to be able to help other individuals. And as we
Mhm.
have this conversation, I know there's somebody that's watching who has a very similar story to mine, as well as the other speakers, that have been, on this segment with you. And every
Mhm.
segment is a little bit different.
Mhm.
But the main thing is I had to learn how to love myself. And when you love yourself, you don't allow anybody else to hurt you spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially, or any relationship. I don't care who it is, your
Mhm.
husband, your children, your mother, your father, your best friends, on your job. And you can look at the mirror and just say, I love myself. So if I'm truly loving myself, I'm not going to let anybody hurt Portia.
Mm. That is so
So
true.
the therapy was very important. The self-love, affirming who I am, affirming who I was, affirming who I was becoming, and telling myself every day, I am healthy, I am whole, mind, body, and soul. I'm on this journey. I am renewed. I have a reboot. I have an opportunity to get a restart. I am
Right.
healed. I am moving forward.
Mhm.
Backward. I have learned some things and I'm moving forward. I'm moving on and I'm taking my babies with me.
That's
So
right.
whatever it is that you have to, affirm to about yourself, you just make those statements about those I am. And I declare and I decree that I am healthy and whole mind, body, and
Yes.
decree that whatever it is that God wants me to have, I'm going to have it. I am walking in the perfect will of God. Nothing more, nothing less, and nothing else. Nothing can separate me from the love of God. No good
Mhm.
thing will God withhold from me.
That's right.
Is my resource,
Mhm.
source of everything that I need. I just have to tell my daddy what I want because he is a God of provision and not of division. So as we see today, God is still providing for me. He
Mhm.
loves me and I love myself.
That is so good. That is so good. I just hear that, and I know that's just touching so many of our viewers right now, that, there are so many women coming out of this that they need to find who they are and whose they are as
Absolutely.
well. They need to know that they are a child of God and that God has a
Absolutely.
destiny and a purpose for
Yes.
each and every single one, and that He's going to turn your mess into your message in order to
Absolutely.
assist so many others. It's so important. And
Yes.
and another thing too, you're talking about just the affirmations to affirm and reaffirm. And I
Yes.
think that also comes from, and I this is what I talk about in Soul Win, that your soul is your mind, your will, and your emotions. And it's like when you
Absolutely.
go through things like this, the trauma, it's like
Mhm.
layers of an onion, that have just been written, all this bad
Mhm.
dialogue. And so now you have all these lies, right? That just
Mhm.
ruminate in your mind.
Yes,
So you have to speak those things out because you want
absolutely.
to defy that lie. You have to come
Mhm.
against it. You have to be able to push back because
Absolutely.
when you speak it, then that's so powerful. And there's
Absolutely.
power in your words. There's power in words.
Absolutely.
Why do you think there's verbal abuse?
Mhm.
People think, oh, it's just verbal. No, it is very powerful
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
death and life are in the power of the tongue, right? So you can
Absolutely.
speak death over someone, you can speak life over someone. Guess what? You
Mhm.
can speak life over yourself. So
Absolutely.
it's so
Because
important that you
you, yeah. I was just going to say that you hear those words over and over in your head, right?
mhm.
Constantly, when you're not loving yourself.
Right.
But the key is a lot of people think because it's verbal, because it's emotional, it's not really abuse. And it's all connected.
Mhm.
Someone say, well, he just hit me. I provoked him. No, mm-mm, no.
Mm.
And that the hit, that sting will go away, but those words remain forever.
Mhm.
Someone that was very, very, very close to me, who was in a situation, abusive situation for years and years and years. And she was getting beaten behind closed doors. But it was every relationship that she was in, it was like this pattern. And so that was just a whole different piece of who we are opening ourselves up to. When we speak and when we act, what relationships are we welcoming into our space, especially when it becomes a pattern?
Mhm.
And we have to ask ourselves that question. Are we opening up to mess? Or are we opening up to ourselves to be blessed?
Right. And I think like what you
Blessed
said,
in every relationship. Yeah.
that cycle has to be
Mhm.
broken at some point.
Absolutely.
And
Mhm.
really, what you just mentioned, again, the power of just speaking and confessing over
Absolutely.
yourself, looking in that mirror and saying that
Absolutely.
you are loved and you are
Absolutely.
lovable. You are loved by
Mhm.
God. And,
Mhm.
saying those things over and over again is, again, coming to love yourself, finding
Absolutely.
who you are, and being able to actually finally break that cycle. Why do
Absolutely.
I keep attracting all of these bad, toxic relationships?
Mhm.
This
Mhm.
is key. This is so,
Absolutely.
so critical. I'm so glad that you mentioned that.
Yes.
So in
Absolutely.
terms of like the healing journey, and then in it seems like in the healing journey, somewhere along the line, because you go through the maybe the denial and then the doubt, and then
Mhm.
finally, okay, how do I work through this? And now, okay, forgiveness. So at one point did you forgive, and how did it feel when you finally did?
It was a while. And I remember he called me up one day.
Hmm.
In fact, no, he texted me
Hmm.
and said, I was just thinking of you. I hope you are okay. I still love you.
Hmm.
And I was just like, wow. And this was years later, because it's 13 years now since I've been divorced.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. And I just said, wow. And I didn't get an eerie feeling. I didn't feel the creepy crawlies. I didn't feel emotional. I was like, wow. And I picked up the phone and I remember reaching back out to him and I just says, thank you for that. How are you? And so I think at that point when it happened, and it was because I had been praying and asking God to remove, all these ill feelings, allow me to forgive him, allow me to forgive myself, because, a lot of things we do to ourselves. And so I have this little mantra that I say all the time. I'm going to inhale, I'm going to exhale. I'm going to forgive myself and everybody else, and I'm going to move on.
Hmm.
So I was just sharing with him the fact that I'm glad that he's in a space where he can move on because I've moved on. But guess what? We still have these three amazing sons that we're
Hmm.
sons to. and eventually we're going to be grandparents, that I hope and pray that we
Oh,
cordial enough, love them enough, love God enough to be able to come together, as a family. And guess what? That has manifested.
oh my goodness.
Room, we can
Yay.
be family gatherings together, and it's like we're friends. It's like I love him like a kind of like a brother, but not
Yeah,
really, what I mean? Just but
right.
it's okay. I don't hate him. It's over with. We have moved forward.
Wow.
Wishes me the best, and I wish him the very best. And I pray for the relationship that he has with his sons,
Hmm.
his future, and for his life, because that my children are part of his DNA.
Yeah,
That's their father.
that's true.
And if it
Always will
wasn't for
be.
him, I would not have my three wonderful, amazing sons.
Oh,
So
and
it gives me that helped me to heal.
yeah. It's just so important, the forgiveness aspect of it. And I obviously, with the summit being the power of forgiveness, I think
Absolutely.
too many times it's seen as forgiveness is somewhat of a weak,
Mhm,
kind of act to do.
mhm,
Why forgive? Because then I'm saying okay to whatever he did to me. But what or it's thought, well, if that if the victim or the survivor wants to keep forgiving, that's what causes them to keep returning to their abuser, and because they tend to be
mhm,
over forgiving all the time, if
mhm.
that's even a term. But just they just forgive and then they go back,
Sure.
and then
Mhm.
that's how they end up, sometimes not making it out. But the key that I really wanted to focus on is just that forgiveness equates
Yes,
to what you had mentioned, self-love.
absolutely.
It's self-love,
Absolutely.
learning how
Mhm.
to love yourself. When you forgive, you're loving yourself, and you're freeing yourself of that burden
Absolutely.
and that shame. And there's
Absolutely.
just so much that lifts off of you. And you may even find, oh my God, my ulcers are gone,
Mhm.
or my migraines are gone, or anything
Mhm.
that's just because you're holding on to that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that stress of holding on to negativity is probably the root cause of all sicknesses and diseases.
Mm.
You've got something that's just been embedded in your spirit that you're holding on to like this, and so it turns into like a cancer, in your body. Not necessarily the virus, the cancer disease, but a cancer that continues to grow, and it could be a spiritual cancer or emotional cancer. You know, um, and just takes over your entire life because you're
Mm.
around with this baggage of unforgiveness, and every time you see this person or you look at a picture or you hear that song, it's just like ugh, but you got to like let it go.
Yes.
You have to like let it go so that you can move forward, because guess what, there's something out there greater for you. But if you're so stuck in this place of unforgiveness, if you're desiring to be in another relationship or desire to ever remarry or whatever, or just to move forward, period, you can't move forward if you're still stuck and you don't let go. Not saying you have to go back to the individual. I'm not encouraging anybody to go back to anything that's toxic and negative and bringing you harm, but you
Mhm.
have to move forward and you have to take that first step.
That is
First
so
step for
true.
anybody is to admit, I've got to move on. I've got to get out of this situation. This is not good for me.
Yes.
Good
Yes.
people, just not good together.
Oh, I love it. That was just so perfectly said. Yep.
Mhm,
Everybody deep down, you have to believe and trust in the goodness of all people. I really
mhm.
do. So you don't become cynical. So good people, just not good for each other.
Absolutely.
It's a really good way to end it. Well, oh, I tell you what, Doctor, I could just talk to you forever. Thank you. You have shared so much and you have inspired, I know, so many women, and you do continue to as you continue to speak, even around the globe. But before we go, I want you to be able to share with us what your free gift is that you wanted to offer the viewers.
Oh, wonderful. I want to encourage everyone to go to my website, drportialockett.com, and then you will see an opportunity to get my 10 tips to stay inspired and encouraged. And all you have to do is leave me your email. so that I can stay in contact with you. Just go to drportialockett.com and get your 10 tips on how to stay inspired and encouraged. And once you get those, you can listen to them as often as you want to. And guess what? If you want to share them with someone else, you can do that as well. But I would love to be able to stay connected to you. And thank you so much, Alana, for having me on your show.
Of course, yes. And viewers, also, as you're watching this, you should be able to see a link or a box below that says get your free gift now. So make sure you click on that box and get your 10 free tips from Dr. Portia Lockett. But thank you again, Dr. Lockett,
Oh, my
for
pleasure.
joining us. Oh my goodness, it was
My
such a
pleasure.
pleasure. Oh my goodness. And also, thank you to all the viewers. Since this is the last show and this is the caboose of the entire summit, thank you so much for joining us on this amazing inspirational journey, hearing bold, brave testimonies of women coming and overcoming their painful
Yes.
past and being triumphant in life now. But also stay tuned right after this message. There will be an important domestic violence prevention and awareness message for you. But until next time, I'm Alana Dela Cruz with Soul and Success Academy. And remember, when you prosper in your soul first, you will also prosper in your health, your finances, and your relationships. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. For most people, home is a place of love, warmth, support, and comfort. But for millions of others, home is anything but a sanctuary. The U.S. Department of Justice estimates that 1.3 million women are victims of abuse by a partner or family member every year. According to the data from the National Institute of Health, in the wake of the COVID lockdowns, U.S. police departments are reporting a 25% increase in calls pertaining to family violence in the home. These statistics are shocking, but also a sobering reminder of how we, as humanity, still have a mighty fight ahead to reduce and to eventually eliminate this evil from our lives and our world. After listening to each guest speaker's story, you may recognize similar behavior in your household. Prior to listening to today's speaker, you may not have believed you were being abused. But domestic violence knows no socioeconomic background, no race, no religion, no gender, and no level of education. Domestic violence takes on many different forms: physical, emotional, mental, verbal, sexual, financial, and even spiritual abuse. If you can relate to any of the above, please reach out for help. Domestic violence should never be tolerated. If you are being harmed or endangered in any of these ways by a family member, a friend, a caretaker, or intimate partner, please reach out safely for help. Remember, you are valued, you are treasured, you're not alone, and most importantly, you are loved by God. For more information about Soul Win Success Academy, please visit alanadelacruz.com. And for more information about this summit and future women's events, please go to thepowerofforgivenesssummit.com.